the founder and director of the Northeast Intelligence Network and CEO of a multi-state licensed private investigative agency serving many Fortune 500 clients, 27-year veteran of conducting investigations in the private sector. He's logged 50,000 hours of covert surveillance in his career and is the author of Tactical Surveillance, a bestseller. He is a member of the International Counterterrorism Officers Association and possesses many law enforcement-related training certificates and certifications. He has been used as an operational asset by the U.S. Department of Justice, the FBI, as well as the Pennsylvania and New York State police agencies. Hagman has performed 8,000 civil and criminal investigations. He's also a frequent expert witness throughout the United States. He's also certified in the forensic discipline of bloodstain pattern analysis. I'm not going to read all of his bio. It goes on and on, but he's been on Fox News, everything, Associated Press, Reuters, Coast to Coast AM in this show. And he joins us right now on the broadcast to break down his source. And here's the headline if you want to see his, because this is already out. It's already in a video form from last night's InfoWars Nightly News. You can get it. I just tweeted it out at Real Alex Jones at Twitter, twitter.com/Real Alex Jones. We're also getting a bunch of calls asking how to sign up for the free newsletter that we send you free copies of the new newspaper in. It's InfoWars.com/newsletter. The network is being inundated with calls. Infowars.com/newsletter. I'm sorry we can't give you free hard copies. We sell them at cost. They sold out in 36 hours, 36,000 copies. We kept back 4,000. But we printed 90,000, but 50,000 on the streets of Austin. The point is that you can get it free at Infowars.com/newsletter. And we're going to this format of our news that's emailed because our expert people we've talked to at the highest levels in government, out of government, say they'll never be able to really stop an email if we have your address. It'll be very hard down the road if they clamp down on stuff. If any internet's left up, we'll still be able to get you emails. So if you want to stay in contact, Infowars.com/newsletter. And we'll always be able to get you Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com one way or another. Okay, Doug Hagman joins us, DHS source. It's going hot. Obama faces the prospect of not being reelected. So the word is they've green-lighted the staged terror. They're going hot. Now, that doesn't mean we can't stop it because you've heard the police officers of the show. You've heard our sources. They've been told it's coming in late October, early November. That does not mean it's going to happen. They could be doing this as a psyop, or they could be doing it as a poison pill with the NSA to see who spreads it in agencies. They admit they do that. Or they could be testing to see if we get upset and warn people, or we could back them off. But I believe Doug Hagman's source. I know he has these sources. Doug, we're going to break here in a few minutes, but recap what your source told you right now, and specifically where you see this going and the time frame he gave you. Doug Hagman, thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks, Alex, for having me. The time frame, let's address that first. Within the next 60 days, any time within the next 60 days, two different scenarios. One, if something would happen, whether it's economical, whether it's as a result of, we'll say, the Middle East becoming explosive all of a sudden, or some other event out of the direct control of this group of people within this regime, the Obama regime, then, of course, they will roll with that and attempt to exploit that. After all, that's the best way to do it. Let something happen. Let's exploit the situation. That way we don't have our hands dirty necessarily. The other alternative, and this is what my source inside with access to high levels at DHS said, is this. Sometime between now and the election, with emphasis on the week, 10 days before the election, optimum time, they would stage a false flag type of operation. And now this is only known to a very compartmentalized, very small group of people. And the go signal that we're talking about is coming from, of all people, Valerie Jarrett. And there's also, I've heard other people, including, now again, this is allegedly from Valerie Jarrett, and allegedly from people such as Leo Gerard, head of labor union. They're all working together to advance this operation. Well, what is this operation? It's as according to my source, it could be one of perhaps three areas. One could be an operation, something that will elicit sympathy and empathy for the president himself, and will depict the white guys with guns, with Bibles, conservative, pro-life, pro-Constitution, as the aggressors. That's what we're looking at as perhaps the most likely scenario.
And I'll tell you what's shocking about this. We're going to break. Come back. We'll get into full detail with our guest and what his source is saying the intel is allegedly. Alex Jones here with a very important announcement for truth seekers. We've carried a lot of amazing films and books over the years on the online video bookstore at Infowars.com. And out of all the titles we've carried, one stands out because it is just so chillingly convincing. And that's Dreams from My Real Father by Joel Gilbert, available at Infowars.com. This film exposes the fraud that Obama is like nothing I've seen. If you want to know who Obama's real daddy is, this is the film for you. Don't forget, your purchase supports our broadcast and our growing media network. You'll also find at InfoWarsShop.com None Dare Call a Conspiracy by Gary Allen, the book that woke me up. We're also carrying Behind the Green Mask, UN Agenda 21 by Rosa Corey. This book is coffin nails to the globalist takeover. The Greater Good, the most professional and up-to-date film I've ever seen exposing the scourge that is vaccines. These titles and a lot more are all available at InfoWarsShop.com. Well, I tell you, this is bold of Doug Hagman and his federal law enforcement source. It's bold to come out with this because they'll be able to probably track it back. It's bold to name names because, I mean, I know who Valerie Jarrett is. I don't know this other person. And this is what his source is saying. He heard from sources. So getting past the names, the point is we see a massive PR buildup, demonizing libertarians, constitutionalists, saying we're terrorists, FEMA training videos everywhere about it. All these top White House people saying, boy, it'd sure be great to have a terror attack and blame it on our enemies. And they have a history of it with Oklahoma City. The Deputy Attorney General intimately involved in the cover-up bare minimum of that. That came out in court, running fast and furious to blame the Second Amendment. So they're prime suspects. That's why I'm going with this. And we need to be able to turn this around. Why do you, I mean, going over your source, did they say, because the quote is going hot, it's going hot, which in military terms, for those that don't know, means into a hot war. I mean, it's about to, all hell's about to break loose, to basically break it down. I mean, give us the data dump. Did your source say there's any way to stop it? How does it tie in with the sex scandal? I know that's happening.
Yeah, and if I may, just briefly, Alex, not that you need my endorsement in any way, shape, or form, but let me just say this so people understand where I'm coming from. I've got a lot of I have 27 years in the investigative business. I've got a lot of law enforcement contacts. I used to hear what you were telling, what you were saying on the radio, and for instance about Oklahoma City and other issues. And I would think, you know what? There's no way. There's absolutely no way that Alex Jones can be correct on this. And I want to apologize to the people I've talked to and perhaps influenced into that way of thinking, because you know, when you take the blinders off and you start looking at this as a normal investigation, oh yeah, now we're finding everything that you've been saying, everything that Steve Quayle's been saying. I used to fight him hard, tooth and nail. I was a bad student, you know, with him. But I got to tell you something. For those listening out there who doubt in any way, shape, or form what you're saying and what you've been saying, don't doubt it, because look, we've done the investigation. You've done the investigation, and I got to tell you something. It's not. I mean, it's everything you say it is, and it's everything that we're saying it is. Now, to answer your question, the source that I've got said, look, I cannot right now, for a lot of reasons, because he is a valuable informational and operational asset for the resistance, if you will. I cannot do anything overtly, come out to go to the press and say, here's what's happening. because there's no documentation that's available. The way these people are setting this up, when I say these people, I'm referring to the communications between the White House and the Department of Homeland Security. They're not stupid. There's nothing on paper. There's nothing. They're not leaving a trail. They're not leaving any documentation. This is not 1972, 73 Watergate.
How did your source discover this? Did he say that?
Yeah, initially initially by accident, and being in the right place at the right time, and he overhearing something, and then befriending a certain individual within the major part of the Homeland, or within the upper echelon of Homeland Security, within that leadership realm, and because of that, because he was able to infiltrate it, if I guess that's the best word. Then he found himself involved of late looking at the sex scandal that you talked about, and how that plays into this whole thing. The sexual perversion surrounding Jenna Napolitano, and the fact that people, because they are involved in this... and
as you know, the feds are now trying to block the suit being public and block new documents in discovery, which shows they're guilty of sin.
Exactly.
Can you tell us what your source said the sexual stuff is?
Well, it's there's different levels, but one of where it affects my source, and one of the issues.
Yeah, don't name names, but just what type of stuff.
Right. You're talking about promotions based on sexual performance. You're talking about promotions based on and access. This is
that's admitted. Well. I mean, they call them in and say perform.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm not exactly certain. What is open source and what's not.
I will stay there. Let's come back and talk about it.
Everything we said came true. Everything we've done's been right.
Now, I'm going to try to shut up now ahead of Steve Quayle coming on, because I brought up some of my questions, but we're not just in a vacuum saying Obama's going to stage stuff. And I want to get back into what your source said, every little piece of data, without you and I going back and forth with provisos here with our guest, who I believe, has this source. You've put out a lot of good info in the past. This is what my sources are saying, but more vague. Just we're told get ready for all you-know-what to break loose in late October, early November. Again, and if we're successful in backing off, they'll say, you said this was going to happen. I'm not saying that was going to happen. I'm saying this is what our sources are saying. I mean, our source on the Olympics was confirmed to be a famous TV producer who did infiltrate, and they later admitted it was a security disaster, and they were told something was going to happen. But they do this quite often. My issue is, did we back it off, or was it a psyop? I don't know. But they're gearing up 400 million bullets, 1 billion, 400 million bullets, armored checkpoints, tanks driving around everywhere, giant black armored vehicles everywhere, surveillance going in, all sorts of federalization, police being given federal ID cards. They're saying they're getting ready for financial collapse in the Washington Post and Fox News. I mean, all this is there. And so I'm saying we better be concerned, because the stars are aligning with the Iran situation. Israel's saying they may attack in October or November. We've got the election, so they love October surprises. We've got all these things lining up, and my gut is saying, danger, Will Robinson. Robbie the Robot, whenever something's approaching. There is something approaching from the southwest. I mean, I'm saying this is the season of it. And I see the preparation, the hyping, the pushing, the conservatives, the libertarians, the talk show hosts like Alex Jones and Matt Drudge and Glenn Beck, and they're going to cause violence. They're planning an overthrow. And then you've got a group that's been caught doing false flags. Let's not forget they did Fast and Furious. We would be insane with sources like the one our guest has to not be concerned. So I want you to continue here, Doug Hagman, and I want to give out your website as well, HomelandSecurityUS.com, where you break down what's really happening with Homeland Security, HomelandSecurityUS.com. You've got the floor for the next 20 minutes ahead of Steve Quayle joining us. Why do you think they're so bold and talking about how false flags will help them in front of us on TV like we don't hear them? What is that? Or is that just pure criminal hubris? And then you've got the floor. Tell me everything your source said.
Well, okay, starting from what you just said, Alex, the boldness, that bothered me a lot because when I deal with the criminal element, they're very covert, they're quiet, the conspiracies are underneath under the cloak of darkness. Why are we hearing about this so openly? And I think one of the reasons is that people don't get it, or there's this normalcy bias. There's this tendency for people not to believe it. And I asked my sources too. I said, number one, why now? Why can't you, for example, go public? And he came back and said, well, what do you think I'm doing? I am going public. I am telling you, I'm trying to get the word out. It's not like I can go down to the New York Times and they're going to print this. We have to use people like yourself. And of course, I've known this person for a long time. But that said, I do believe that it's out in the open because it's almost as if no one really cares. I mean, no one, or they don't believe it. Or even if it does happen, they won't believe the origin of it. Now, what is it? What are we talking about? For example, and I asked my source, okay, what should we be looking for? And he said, frankly, I'm not sure, because the talk among the high-level people that he has access to has been pretty vague, purposely vague. Now, as I understand it, as he understands it, there are a couple of different potential possibilities. When he said, all right, it's going hot, and those were his words, and he was very adamant about this. He said there has been approval from the White House sources, from the White House people, to go ahead with a plan. Whether it's Plan A, it could be a racially triggered event. Plan B, an economic triggered event. Or Plan C, staging, for example, riots in different cities. They've got the personnel to do this, too. That was the other thing. And now I'm giving you information that I withheld from any written article because I knew I was going to be doing some interviews. But look, when they've got the people to engage in provocative type of activities, we'll say, to storm a county courthouse, to storm a federal building in opposition or because of some protest or whatever, or even to storm facilities in Washington. Remember that shooting at the White House here not too long ago. My source said, for one person in particular, Ms. Jarrett was very upset that was not played up better in the media, because here it is, most likely a white gun owner shooting at the house of a black president. Obama wasn't even in the White House. Again, they're trying to make this a racial issue, and So the trigger event, the actual event that's being talked about, it's rather vague. But look, it's going to be something that's the intent here, according to my source, and I took copious notes when I spoke to him on a couple of different occasions. The intent is to really galvanize that chasm, that difference between the races or the classes, whatever it might be, to make sure that there is white versus black or white versus whoever. Okay, where the gun owning Christian pro-constitutionalist, they are going to, everything that you pointed out in the MIAC report, the returning veterans, that threat, there's going to be that common thread of that threat involved in whatever staged event there is. And again, this does fit and comport with, as you stated in the past, the New World Order agenda. And I asked my source this as well. I said, is Obama behind this? I mean, is this just Obama? And he said, I don't think so. He said, I don't think so, because, again, the information that he's got access to does suggest some level of higher involvement. And again, I'm thinking, well, how much higher do you go than Obama if we're talking specifically about Obama? And of course, there's the New World Order factor, and something I never thought existed, but it certainly does. And you've proven that time and time again. So that's what we're looking at, Alex. And I'm not sure I could be any more specific as to what it is, what the event is going to be.
Sure. Well, I mean, I can imagine they're all wondering, are we still going to be here? And they say, yeah, don't worry, there's going to be a crisis very soon, and we're going ahead with it. And that's basically what your source said, because they're on Chris Matthews not once but twice saying we need a big catalyzing event to reconnect. Another show a year ago, we need a mass shooting to reconnect, and it's a White House official saying this on the show. We see the fundraising memos, the Tides Foundation letters saying there's going to be an event and it's going to be blamed on talk radio. We see them. We see Bill Clinton telling USA Today, oh, my reelection to Oklahoma City had brought us together. I mean, we know that Robert Shapiro, in fact, guys, type this in. Robert Shapiro says only terror attack will save Obama. Show the Financial Times of London on screen. I don't want to just be saying this. I know we've shown it hundreds of times, but we haven't shown it today. I want to show people where he says, barring, this is a quote, a new Oklahoma City or 9/11, the president is not going to get reelected. I mean, why are they saying this publicly? I mean, it's like they're saying, we need it, we need it, we need it, as if we're dumb and don't see this.
Yeah, and this is one thing, too. I've talked at length with the author Marinka Peshman, author of The Whistleblower. And in fact, she's going to be on our program tonight. But I've talked with her, and she said people have to understand the Clintons, number one, have never left power, have never left the Washington power structure. And number two, the Clintons are interwoven within the Obama power structure. They're advising Obama, and how well that they use the Oklahoma City tragedy, the bombing there, how well that they massaged put the blame on talk show hosts, radio talk show hosts, the conservative hatred of conservatives, or not even conservatives, but the hatred of those who would dare expose their tactics. This is where the Obama administration is getting their information from, and I've got to tell you, it's big. I mean, the influence is huge, but when you come down to the logistics of such an operation here, once again, we were striving together to try to figure out if we don't have we've got pages of their playbook. We've got their operational playbook, but the plays themselves, we only have bits and pieces of the plays. We know, for example, again, it's going to be either racial or economic. It's in terms of a trigger event, and I'm trying to be as precise as possible, but not just operating off of the information that we have. So I mean, it's something that, again, my source says, look, there is something here. We've heard the discussions. He's heard the discussions. He's heard the meeting where they said, okay, it's a go. It's going to go hot. But beyond that, is in terms of when exactly, I wish I could say, it would be October 10th or 12th, or I wish I could say it would be, an attempted whatever. I can't. I don't have that information, nor does he. Now, on the other hand, I will say this. He is working to mitigate, and you pointed this out, and I think this is important for people really to understand. And Steve Quayle, by the way, who's coming on, his sources are saying the very same thing your sources are saying, my sources are saying. Of course, my DHS source is saying, look, we are working. There are some people here are working to stop this, to throw a monkey wrench into this, into the workings. I know that we don't have a whole lot of information, but we do know the operational guidelines and operational tactics of DHS. That said, we know what we can possibly do when the time comes. We'll know it when we see it, and we're going to try to act accordingly to mitigate whatever it might be. So there is hope. And as you said, if nothing happens, well, people can say, boy, it was Doug Hagman. He's a Looney Tune. Well, okay, you know, consider over the last 8 years, or even the last.
No, I hear you. We got to go to break. But if it does happen, then they'll try to spin it as well. But at least you did what you needed to. The Financial Times of London article was Obama faces growing credibility crisis, and in it, Robert Shapiro, White House advisor, is quoted as saying the stuff about a new Oklahoma City 9/11. Alex Jones here with a message to fellow freedom lovers. The prognosis for the entire planetary economic system runs from bad to worse. The globalist model is to shut down societies and starve patriots out until they acquiesce to the global takeover. That's why we've assembled the most vital and important preparedness items at InfoWarsShop.com. These are items that I did research on, that I personally use. We've got the life straw, so you can turn fetid water into safe water anywhere you go. The K-Tor hand crank generator to charge up key equipment during power outages or out in the field. Strategic Relocation, 3rd edition by Joel Skousen. When Disaster Strikes by Matthew Stein. ThyroSafe, used by Homeland Security to protect yourself during any radiological event. Hand crank shortwave AM/FM radios. Everything that we've researched and found to be the best is available at InfoWarsShop.com, and your purchase makes our InfoWar possible. We're getting prepared. Are you? InfoWarsShop.com. 9 TV shows, letters, public statements. Obama faces growing credibility crisis. Robert Shapiro quoted Financial Times of London. Here's the quote. This is one of 9 times. Every time I search this, I find new ones I didn't know about. The bottom line here is that Americans don't believe in President Obama's leadership, says Rob Shapiro, another former Clinton official and supporter of Obama. Yeah, he's an advisor. He has to find some way between now and November of demonstrating that he is a leader who can command confidence. And short of a 9/11 event or in Oklahoma City, I can't think of how he can do that. Now, they go further, other advisors saying they're going to blame it on us. And we played those clips in the last hour. And we're talking right now to the head of the Northeast Intelligence Network, Doug Hagman. He's on with us right now. Doug, you got cut off because these are hard breaks when they're, you know, the satellites fire at a certain time. Last time I had Salente on, people made not Salente, but others made a fake controversy that he was starting to get into a subject. And I go, oh, got to go to break. I mean, they're hard-coded at, you know, we come in at 8 after, go out at 20 after, go out at 30 after, come in at 33, go out at 50. 1, you know, come back at show. Here we are. We got about 6 minutes right now, 5 minutes right now, then we're going to break at the end of the hour. That's a conspiracy too. No, this is the real conspiracy, what's happening. You were trying to talk about how, hey, if it doesn't happen, they can say, oh, Doug Hagman's wrong. You didn't get to finish, so restate what you were trying to say, that thought.
Well, just to expand upon what you said earlier, and I think this is so important, I think really people have to understand this, is that, you know, the more sunshine, the more disinfectant we can pour on these plans, and whatever we can shine, whatever light we can shine on these plans, it helps to mitigate, to offset, and to upset their plans.
There's a reason Homeland Security in a 4-year document is spying on Infowars.com in this show, and they're worried about our reports about false flags. Isn't that interesting that they're really looking at that?
You know, when I saw that, Alex, I looked at that and I thought, wow, you know, really what's behind this? You know, what would be their motivation? And again, now you were named specifically, I believe when we talked before, you were named as a subject of InfoWars, Prison Planet, Alex Jones. Your entire enterprise was named as a surveillance subject, a subject of surveillance.
Yeah, and it said basically that I'm kind of a terrorist and I'm an extremist and I'm dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wondered why. I mean, I was thinking, well, wait a minute. You know, is it that? You know, exactly why? What are we talking about here? And Alex, I think that you're right on the money with this. I do believe that you're getting very close when you talk about false flags and the government involvement in this, because people like me, just a few years ago, man, I thought it was nuts. I didn't believe this. But now, again, you're convincing a lot of people.
Well, it's not just me, though. It's the facts coming out. How bad does it hurt the globalists that they're getting caught in things like Fast and Furious?
Look, it's a game changer. But you also see, too, with Fast and Furious, you've got a U.S. attorney that won't pursue the criminal contempt and civil contempt charges against Holder. You know, what do you do? And see, this is another thing that my source did tell me. They've got the perfect arrangement right now. They've got the guy in the Justice Department, Eric Holder, on their side, a red diaper baby, right along with Obama and Jarrett and all these people. So this is the perfect time to go through and to implement.
Well, yeah, that's the word from people I know that are really well connected who know Romney's bad news. They say, look, at least it rearranges the chairs. Obama's got his criminal syndicate in there. If he gets back in, he's never leaving.
Do you understand how dark it is? How far down the line we are? How late it is?
Finishing up with Doug Hagman of the Northeast Intelligence Network, private investigator. And you can visit his website, HomelandSecurityUS.com, HomelandSecurityUS.com. Got about 5 minutes left here, Doug. We were just getting into the fact that, yeah, Fast and Furious is a game changer. The documents came out. They did it to blame the Second Amendment. That's even on CBS News. So it is a game changer, but now nothing can even be done. They're just sitting there. That's why they'll probably even have election fraud. Not that I think Romney's good, but I don't think, I mean, he's more of a globalist with white gloves on. With Obama, you're dealing with like, you know, absolute Chicago mafia type stuff where they are nasty, nasty, nasty. And again, I'm not saying stuff won't get even more hellish with Romney, but probably will. But I don't see Obama going anywhere. I mean, is that what your source is getting at? Is they're going to pull some chicanery?
Exactly, and that's, boy, that is so key, Alex. I'm glad you mentioned that, because what my source said, there are too many people, and I'm looking at my notes here, almost trying to quote him. There are too many people who want a seat and are guaranteed a seat at the Obama table, that if he loses, they would lose that seat. That they obviously want to work overtime to ensure that Obama does not remains in the White House, I should say. That's the key. That's the objective here. We do know, of course, that you've got the different side of the coin, that being Mitt Romney, ultimately answering to the same higher powers. But with Obama, you've got, look at it this way, you've got a straight interstate highway going right to the objective. With Romney, you might have a little detour and kind of a more scenic route to the same destination.
A more scenic route to hell.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and yeah, but that's, you know, with Obama, you've got the Holder Justice Department that's not going to change if Obama stays, and you've got all of these people with the again the anti-Second Amendment people, and as you mentioned before, and people have to understand, the amount of ammunition, just to put this in perspective, could fill 63 Olympic-sized swimming pools. This is just under the Obama administration. 63 sized Olympic swimming pools, 5 on average, 5 bullets.
This is more than, yeah, exactly, 5 bullets per person.
Right. So something is up. I mean, obviously something is up. Now, the argument on the other side is, well, they've always ordered ammunition. No, they haven't. This shot up after 2004.
Yeah, they've never even ordered, I looked it up, they've never ordered 10% of this in a year.
Exactly. So, you know, and again, you know, Steve Quayle, his sources, exactly the same information, or relatively the same information, different sources, but the same.
We've had police call up that I later talked to, but I confirm are officers breaking down, crying on air because they've been told martial law in September. Now, again, that doesn't mean it's going to happen, but they're talking about calling in the military, calling in airstrikes on citizens. I mean, what are they? Man, I'm freaked out. I mean, I hope there's some way to turn this around. In closing, did your source think this could be turned around? Obviously, kind of in a way, he came to you, so he wants it to get out there.
Yeah, and he said the only way, in his mind, the only way that this could be turned around is through extensive exposure. On the other hand, there are some patriots within the federal government and at various, in the rank and file, you know, obviously the rank and file, but various mid-level departments who are working, who know what's going on, and they're attempting to change things, the oath keepers, so to speak. So, you know, there is a possibility.
Wow, Doug, we're going to get Steve Quayle up, but I know he's got some announcements to make, but I want to hold you there because I want to ask Steve if he's got any questions or comments for you. You're very polite to stay with us. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the site, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want. Now, Doug Hagman, the Northeast Intelligence Network, private investigator, advises police, frequent guest on talk shows across the country, frequent guest here. He has some of his Homeland Security sources, as we do. We've broken a lot of national news over the years, as everyone knows, with MIAC and Homeland Security reports and countless others. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a good source Doug has. Now, it doesn't mean the source isn't being fed disinfo, because they can say it's all coming down and then they back off. But you can see all the preparations. They didn't buy $1 billion+ bullets to play Ted Lee Wanks. They're not buying armored vehicles, all of this, you know, stuff for nothing. And Steve was telling us tonight on his radio show, you can find out more at stevequayle.com, and also on their nightly show, the Northeast Intelligence Network. They're going to be breaking all this down together. But to give us a quick breaking peek at what the source is saying is Doug Hagman. So I'm going to turn back and talk to him, joining us on quick notice via Skype. Doug, I know you got to go quick here, but tell us what's breaking over there on your site.
Well, Alex, as you said, the bottom line here is I've got a source from the DHS that said it's going hot, meaning the plans that they have in place have been approved at the highest levels of the White House. These are orders, plans, orchestrated stage events coming from the White House and being coordinated with Janet Napolitano. Now, this is from, according to my source, Valerie Jarrett and someone else that's involved in the higher echelon, the closest circle of the president. Now, what it is, when I say it's going hot, or when my source says it's going hot, is a stage event of some kind or some sort of false flag type of event to garner sympathy, to garner support for the president, who's maybe lagging in the polls, who might be you know, in fear of having to vacate the Oval Office in November. They would institute a plan. Now, they've got a couple of different plans, according to my source, and they change them with events, just like we saw with the hurricane. With Biden, okay, there was some talk about, in fact, I believe other people have talked about perhaps a false flag or stage event with Biden because they couldn't figure out where Biden fit into things. Well, according to my sources, look, they've got contingency plans upon contingency plans, and that was one of them, okay? So the bottom line here, I guess the real news is this. According to my source, they want to go ahead. When I say they, I'm talking about the Valerie Jarretts, the labor leaders, the people who benefit most by Obama being in office and who want to see another 4 years of fundamental transformation of this country. It's them who are saying, look, let's ensure his re-election. If we can't ensure his re-election through votes, then we're going to ensure it through through controlling the opposition, controlling the voting process, and even perhaps suspending the elections, which is incredible. I know it's Looney Tunes talk, but
it's not Looney Tunes talk. We had all those White House advisors, the Financial Times of London, their fundraisers saying, don't worry if he gets down on the polls. There'll be an event, a new Oklahoma City or 9/11 will blame on the Tea Party. We'll blame on Alex Jones, Glenn Beck. I mean, that was all said, and you're saying your source says, I mean, they did Fast and Furious, so they could be capable of doing anything. That's why we have to look at this, and that's why this is such big breaking news. Continue to elaborate on this, then we'll learn more tonight when you guys break this down with Steve Quayle, but I want to get Steve's take on this. What else did your source say?
Well, to expect this, it's going to depend on the series of, or it's going to depend on how things work out or how things play out. But one of the things says to expect it when you least expect it, and this is something I didn't publish, and also to whatever it is going to be, it's going to galvanize, it's going to polarize, I should say, various aspects of our country. The rich versus the poor, the black versus the white. I mean, it's going to cover a gambit of things. That's what my source is saying. Well,
you notice the White House got caught sending in agitators of the Trayvon Martin deal.
Yeah.
But people were too smart on all the sides to take the bait. I mean, they are really trying to get us fighting with each other.
Well, yeah, and I think, and to your credit and to Steve's credit, to people who are speaking out against this, you know, and you had mentioned earlier, what if this is just nothing more than a disinformation campaign? I thought of that. It could very well be. And if that is the case, then so be it. How do you tell? I don't know. But the fact is, this guy, who I believe I've known this guy for a quarter century. Look, he's given me a lot of information in the past, and he said these people are very serious. These people want. I mean, look, it's going. You know, this is right now. The start of what could very well be a dramatic change in America itself. And well,
the globalists are running around like it's the end of the world, digging in everywhere, arming themselves, and they know they've got to get this collectivized New World Order in. But I mean, you know, Romney's not much different than Obama. I don't know why they don't let that just coast in. But there are those Chicago Mafia criminal elements that are so virulent that they may want to keep that particular management team in place. We know there's fights within the whole New World Order system. Your source in DHS, do they say anything about, I mean, I'm just throwing out questions I would ask about other people in DHS. I mean, is there anything they won't go along with? I mean, obviously they're concerned if they're telling you stuff, they're telling me stuff. We get, you know, a lot of breaking news as well. I mean, the word I get is that police and military and even feds, even though they've tried to pick bad people, are just totally freaking out right now because everything that the conspiracy theorists talked about is coming true.
No, which is true. Your information is accurate, and I know you've got some fantastic sources. The rank and file of DHS, of the law enforcement agencies that are involved in DHS, yeah, in fact, they're fed up. They are freaked out, for lack of a better descriptive term. But in particular, one thing that really got to me was the fact that we all recall the sexual component to the Napolitano staff picks and
lesbian parties, you know.
Exactly. That, they almost, according to my source, they almost lost control of this information, I shouldn't say the information, of the compartmentalization of the information, because it was during one of those situations, let's just say, that there was something said, and it was done in such a fashion where there, in fact, they're very adept at using sexual perversions for blackmail, and that's why they're bringing these people in. I mean, look, blackmail is blackmail, and of course, if you're married,
well, they want to bring in mentally defective people that. I mean, it's one thing to have those sexual persuasions, but, you know, just the domination, the craziness, the wildness of these souped up, hyper male. I mean, these women take testosterone. I mean, and that's the whole culture. They're crazy people, basically, and they can't help it. That's who the globalists want, is just lunatics who would order I mean, say what you want about Bush. They didn't have TSA fondling children and women at the airport. I mean, this is a group taking their sick domination out in the open. They're criminals. Criminals always get reckless.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, you were saying that before, long before I was. Steve Quayle was saying that long before I was. And boy, I'll tell you, what a wake-up call I received when I realized everything you've been saying is true and everything that Steve's been saying is true. And to have somebody from, detached to DHS, law enforcement officer, say, hey, look, this is what's taking place. And it is. And so to really sum it up, at this point, I believe, based on what my sources told me, we are at the point now where there has been a commitment given by, whether it's Valerie Jarrett or someone else close to Obama. Perhaps Obama doesn't even know about this or has a suspicion, but he's not in on necessarily the integral planning of this. But that final go-ahead has been given, and certain conditions have to exist or should exist before whatever it is.
Well, there it is. From your source, there's the headline. Globalists to stage false flag for Obama, or false flag trigger to be pulled for Obama. I mean, you think that's an accurate headline?
I do. Very much so. Yes, I do. And I think, Canada Free Press picked up on this. Judy McLeod had written a story yesterday that kind of set the stage. Yeah, and we didn't collaborate on anything for this article about, staging a false flag event.
Look. We've got all these advisors saying, gee, it would sure help us. Now Obama's in trouble. And everybody better have their eyes peeled for this. You guys are going to cover this more tonight. People can find out at stevequayle.com or Northeast Intelligence Network's website. In fact, give people that site again.
It's Alex, thank you very much. It's HomelandSecurityUS.com. It's HomelandSecurityUS.com, not affiliated with any government website.
Sure, and we've had that up on screen as well. Let's bring Steve Quayle in here, who's on the show tomorrow. In fact, we should get you on after him tomorrow. He's on at noon, the radio show tomorrow. Steve Quayle, give us your take on what you just heard, because you were the one while we were on air that alerted me to Doug's new report, so we got him on with you at the end of this in-depth interview. This is just chilling, because this fits into all the preparations we see, and then the criminals are so arrogant, they're writing op-eds in major publications going, don't worry, there'll be a big staged event we'll blame on people. I mean, they're so arrogant, they don't even put 1 inch of separation. They don't say they're going to stage it. They just say, don't worry, fundraisers. Doesn't matter if we're down the polls. There'll just be something staged. We'll blame on the Tea Party. I mean, they're now suspect number 1, Steve Quayle, when there's an event. I mean, aren't they?
Well, absolutely, but it gets back, Alex, to the same thing. Everybody other than them is a target to be destroyed. They have assassination algorithms. We'll talk about that maybe tomorrow on your show. But again, Doug, why don't you give out the Blog Talk Radio that address too, because it's on Blog Talk Radio under Hagman and Hagman, right?
Correct. And Steve, the best way to do it would be just to go to I think you've got a link up on your website. If not, HomelandSecurityUS.com. Click on the Listen Now button.
Yeah, that's why I sent them there. And Doug, if you can do it in the hour after Steve tomorrow, that'd be 1 o'clock Central. I'd like to try to get you on because again, even if this is disinfo they're giving your people, all the preparations are there. We know they'd stage this if they could get away with it. We may be able to stop them if everybody runs around like chickens with their heads cut off right now, getting this info out. That could, or do you think if they've committed, they're still going to pull the trigger?
Well, Alex, my source said, look, you got to make this public. You got to let people know about this, because it could very well stop this. It could very well.
Oh, that's key. Oh, really? What do you...
Well, yeah. Now, I mean, this has been, of course, he's been saying that since April, because this, by the way, this story is the culmination of a series of conversations we've had. So, yeah, and every time he said, look, the more information you can pump out there, the more sunshine you can put on this, the more exposure you can get on this, the less likely they are to expose, or to go ahead and do this, because the backlash. I mean, look, they want the backlash, but but they're afraid of an informed backlash. I don't know if that makes sense. You know,
sure. I mean, they're wanting to get away with this and be able to launch it and not have people looking at it when it happens.
Yeah, they want the response. In other words, for example, using the Trayvon Martin shooting, you know, supposedly which it wasn't a black on white, white on black crime. They want that knee-jerk response. But if you know ahead of time that, hey, this is going to happen, this is being planned, it's going to happen, well, you know, then the response can be tempered, and of course, it won't work.
Sure. I mean, you can diffuse it or partially diffuse it or misdirect it. Did he give any ideas on what it could be? I mean, it sounded like he was alluding to this will play race and financial groups off against each other.
Yeah, you know, he's stuck right along with since day one. There's a racial component to this. There's an economic component to it, a huge economic component to it, and just a general chaos aspect of the revolutionary component of the people involved. So, yes, the economics and race and class warfare. All
right, we're going to talk about it tomorrow on the radio for the second and third hour. Mr. Hagman, thank you so much. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Thank you, sir. Visit Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. When you're on the sites, you can also tune in 24 hours a day to my daily radio broadcast. There's also a free iPhone app to listen to the syndicated radio show when and where you want.